Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well. I get a lot of questions on social media about being or becoming a lawyer. I often get asked about, what it's like to be a lawyer, what does my day look like, how much does a lawyer make, what does a lawyer actually do. And so today I'm making a video to help you figure out whether or not you should become a lawyer. To be frank, there are quite a few things that you need to take into consideration if you want to become a lawyer, so I'm going to try to go through them one by one. There are definitely quite a few myths about becoming a lawyer that I do think need to be deconstructed, and in order to do that, I think that the first question you must ask yourself is, why do you want to become a lawyer? Do you want to become a lawyer for financial reasons, because you think you will become a lawyer and you'll make bank, which is what a lot of people think, and I'm actually going to be looking into how much lawyers actually make towards the end of this video, so stay tuned. Is it because you care about certain issues and you want to be part of the solution? Is it because you are really interested in certain industries and you want to become involved in them on the legal side? Is it the lifestyle that attracts you? Are you really looking forward to, wearing suits and dressing up all the time and going to events and meeting really important people? Or maybe it is your personality. Do you have a personality that you think would fit with the whole being a lawyer thing? I know that a lot of people who go to law school are told at a very young age that they would be great lawyers because they love to argue. We're going to be discussing that later on during this video. But yeah, I think that the first thing that you need to look into is, why do I want to become a lawyer? Once you figure it out why you actually want to become a lawyer, let's look into each of these points one by one. So let's start with the lifestyle. I want to start with the lifestyle because our perception of what lawyers do and what their lifestyle actually is really does stem from pop culture, and it also stems from the idealization of lawyers' lifestyles, or what I like to call the Suits lifestyle. You've all watched Suits. The first thing that I want to say about lawyers' lifestyle is that there really isn't a set lifestyle. I think your lifestyle as a lawyer will greatly depend on where you work and the type of work that you actually do. So for instance, lawyers who work in law firms have a very different lifestyle from lawyers who work in-house, either in union businesses or in nonprofits or at the government. And then even within those categories, all lawyers have different lifestyles. So lawyers who work in big law firms don't have the same lifestyle as lawyers who work in medium law firms, and don't have the same lifestyle as lawyers who work in smaller law firms and in solo practice. And the same thing goes for being in-house. If you work for a big corporation, it's not going to be the same thing as if you work for a small business, or if you work at the government, or if you work for an NGO. The thing that I really want to stress here is that what you see on TV isn't real. And if we just take Suits as an example, it's not true that you're going to spend your days just walking around in a fancy suit, going from client meeting to client meeting, and that you're not going to be doing anything else. That's not true. If Suits actually showed you what lawyers do on a day-to-day basis, it probably wouldn't make for a very great show now, wouldn't it? You would just see people sitting down at their desks, typing or searching for like hours. Actually, I'm saying it wouldn't make for a great show, but I would probably still watch Suits if it were just people sitting at their computers and complaining about databases not working. Relatable. But yeah, what you see on TV isn't real. So I think it's really important to have an accurate idea of what lawyers actually do and what their lifestyles look like. Now, let's talk about hours. How much do lawyers actually work? So the average work week for a lawyer in Canada is 50 hours a week. And from the numbers that I've seen online, it seems to be very similar in the States, although I could not find exact numbers in the States for, what a typical work week looks like. And you have to keep in mind that 50 hours is an average, and where you work will definitely have an impact on the number of hours that you work during the week. So if you work for a big law firm, chances are you're probably going to work for more than 50 hours a week. But if you work in-house, chances are you will have something that at least looks very similar to a 9 to 5, maybe like a few more hours here and there. But generally speaking, lawyers who work in-house do have a much better work-life balance than lawyers who work in private practice. So let's look back into what we've addressed. Suits lifestyle, not real. Your lifestyle is going to be very different depending on where you work. On average, you're looking into 50 hours a week, but this does increase if you go into private practice and if you work for a bigger law firm, and it will decrease if you are in-house. So aside from hours, another thing that I wanted to address was mental health. And I think that if you are looking into becoming a lawyer, one of the things that you need to ask yourself is how much stress can you actually handle? Mental health problems are very, very common in the legal field. It is nothing to be ashamed of. I am a very anxious person. I have a therapist now, so we're working on that. But to be honest, this is something that I was expecting. I wasn't expecting becoming a lawyer to be like a really chillax job or a very low stress job. So I think you need to be aware of that, and you do need to ask yourself, how much can I actually handle? Now that we've talked about the lifestyle, what does a lawyer actually do? And this does relate a little bit to the lifestyle, but what does a lawyer actually do? Let's start with the basics. Lots of reading, lots of writing. If you don't like reading or writing, do not become a lawyer. Just forget about it. Also, as always, the type of work that you will do will greatly depend on where you work. A lot of people think that lawyers just argue all day, and that is absolutely not true. There are different types of lawyers. I'll give you an example. I am not a litigator, which means that I do not go to court. I do not litigate. What does a day in my life look like? A lot of sitting down, a lot of drafting contracts, a lot of reading, a lot of doing research, a lot of emails, client consultations here and there, creating content because I have my own practice. But if I were a litigator, my days would be very different. I would spend a lot more time in court. I would spend a lot of time talking to other lawyers, so opposing counsel. I'd be on my feet a little more. I probably wouldn't be sitting down so much. Dealing with clients is also something that is going to be different from one place to another. If you work in private practice, you will have to deal with a lot of clients and you will be handling a lot of cases at the same time. If you work in-house for a business, you only have one client, and that's your business. And I have to say that dealing with clients is definitely a whole other skill set that no one actually teaches you, but it is really essential if you are looking into working in private practice. I also want to stress the fact that there's so many things you can do as a lawyer, so many things. You have to think that all industries need lawyers. You have lawyers in the fashion industry, you have lawyers in the entertainment industry, unions have lawyers, video game industry has lawyers, aviation industry has lawyers, automobile industry has lawyers. Everyone has and needs lawyers, every single industry. And I think it's important to stress that because you can definitely find a field that relates to your interest and that you can practice law in and be very happy about. However, you have to remember that at the end of the day, regardless of what the industry you are in is, being a lawyer is being a lawyer. I personally have a lot of clients in the fashion industry, and when I say that to students or when I say that to other lawyers, people seem to think that I just spend my days at fashion show and walking around in factories and in people's workshops and it's being very glamorous. But I do go to fashion shows and I do sometimes go to very nice events. But most of the time, I'm sitting down and I'm drafting contracts and I'm reading contracts and I'm sending emails. Right now, I am definitely not going to any shows, so I am doing a lot of reading and drafting. I do think it's hard to grasp what a lawyer actually does unless you either hire one and work with one, or unless you shadow one, spend a day with one just to see what it is that they're actually doing. So I would definitely suggest reaching out to lawyers in your area, asking them if you can shadow them for a day, or asking them if they want to go get coffee with you, and try to learn a bit more about what it is that they actually do. That will definitely help you figure out whether or not you want to be a lawyer, and also what kind of lawyer you want to be. So we've discussed the lifestyle, we've discussed the work that a lawyer actually does. Now we're going to look into what kind of person are you? Now, before going into this section, I do want to say that all lawyers are different. All lawyers are different, and every single field and every single, type of law requires a different kind of skill set and a different personality, but we do have common traits. Lawyers tend to have a very analytical mind. And this is definitely something that you are taught to develop in school, but also as you practice, So, you don't have to worry too much about that, but it is something that is very important when you are a lawyer. Another good thing to ask yourself is, are you shy? And when I say shy, I do not mean introverted. I actually mean shy. If you are very shy, becoming a lawyer might not be for you simply because of the amount of people that you have to talk to on a regular basis. However, I do want to say that whether you are introverted or extroverted, you can become a lawyer and you can be a very good lawyer regardless of which one you actually are. Another question to ask yourself is, do you like conflict? Whether or not you like conflict or whether or not you're actually comfortable in conflict will greatly impact the type of law that you decide to work in, and also the type of lawyer that you decide to become. So for instance, I don't like conflict, I don't do well in conflict, I do not want to deal with anyone's conflict, so I don't litigate. It's not for me, and that's okay. It's for other people, and I am perfectly okay with that. So what I would suggest is asking yourself what kind of person you are, and then thinking about the types of laws that you actually want to practice or the type of lawyer that you actually want to become, and try to figure out whether or not those are compatible. So I gave you an example earlier. If you don't like conflict, litigation probably isn't for you. If you are someone who is very extroverted and you like talking to people and you really like exchanging, then maybe going in-house would be a good idea for you. I remember when I was articling in-house, I got to talk to so many people and I really enjoyed it, but I am introverted and I think someone who is extroverted would have enjoyed it even more. And now, the financial side of becoming a lawyer. We're going to look into two things: salary and then cost of education. Let's start with the cost of education. Now, I live in Canada, more specifically in Quebec, and the cost of education is very low compared to other provinces in Canada and also compared to the States. I know that becoming a lawyer in the States is so expensive. It's horrendous. That's all I have to say. It is horrendous.
Let's look at tuition fees in Canada. So I've compiled some numbers here for you, and these are the yearly tuition costs in 4 universities in Canada for domestic students. Quebec tuition costs being the cheapest, obviously, and then Ontario's being the highest in this case. And of course, I will put all of the sources in the description below so that you guys can check them out for yourselves. For the US, I found this graph that sums it up pretty well. Average tuition costs are about $49,000 for private school, $28,000 for public in-state school, and then $41,000 for public out-of-state school. And this is also annually.
And I will be putting all the information that I have given you in this video in the description. So all the stats that I've mentioned, all the numbers that I've mentioned, everything will be in the description below. So now that we've looked into how much becoming a lawyer actually costs, let's look at how much a lawyer actually makes. So this question will depend on a lot of things. It will depend on where you live. It will depend on what type of law you practice, and it would also depend on where you work.
Let's start with new graduate salary in Canada. So most new graduates working at a law firm will be paid anywhere between $40,000 to $80,000. The majority are between $40,000 to $60,000, and then about 22% are between $80,000 to $95,000. Keep in mind that this survey is Canada-wide. In the US, median salary for graduates really seems to depend on where you went to school. So here we're talking up to $75,000 in public schools, and it can go very, very high if you studied at a private school. And here we're looking at numbers that can go upwards of $150,000. Obviously, there are always exceptions, but I think this can give you a pretty good idea of what lawyers can make from the very beginning. Finally, I thought it'd be interesting to look at what lawyers on average make regardless of their experience. Now, this is the last Quebec Bar Report about their members, and the median salary here is between $90,000 to $110,000, and I will also link this report in the description.
I also want to point out that we often hear these big numbers when we hear about lawyers billing. So we hear lawyers billing, $400 an hour, $500 an hour, $300 an hour, and we think, wow, that's a lot of money. But you do have to realize that if you work at a law firm and you're an employee, you're not actually making that. You are not making $600 an hour. Your law firm is billing $600 an hour for your time, and then you are making a salary. which is separate from that. So don't be fooled. If you actually want to know how much a lawyer makes, do not look at how much they bill per hour, especially if you are looking into working for a law firm. So at the end of the day, I think it's a matter of being realistic about how much all of this is going to cost you and how much all of this is actually going to get you once you are done with law school. If I can speak for like my personal situation, I'm really happy that I went to law school. I think it was worth it for me, but I also do realize that I am privileged in many ways and that I also live in a city and in a province where the cost of education is quite low. So I hope this helped you figure out whether or not you should become a lawyer. As usual, don't forget to like this video if you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And if there are any videos that you would like me to make, please let me know in the comments below. Bye guys!